Hi, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Our Scientology Stories, Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and we're happy to have you here watching. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Janis Grady. Hi, Janis. How you doing?
Aloha, Mark. Good day, all you onion peelers. It's going good. Hello to all the onion peelers. We have a good one today. We're going to peel some more onions. And this time, our special guest is smart beyond her years, but she's known everything since she was 5 years old. My daughter, Erin Grady.
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. Apparently, I know everything, so it's great.
Well, welcome to our show. We're happy to have you here. I think we had kind of an inside track to get you on the show.
Yes. I know someone.
Many people know someone.
Yeah, while we're waiting for people to get on here for a minute, just everybody get in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. I saw somebody from Quebec in the chat, and Kent, Washington, things like that, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we're just waiting for people to get in here. We've got 35 people in here right now. And I know some people are on another channel right now, and we hope that they'll join us here shortly. But you're in for a treat because this is Erin's first time being interviewed, right, Erin?
Well, I've been interviewed for other things before, but this is my first time ever talking about Scientology and its effects on my life. I think because I wasn't in. Yeah.
We got somebody from Brazil. We've got southeastern Colorado. We've got New York City in the house, Lincoln, California, Wisconsin, Michigan. So anyway, we want to welcome everybody here. And Janis, why don't you let's start first, Janis. Yeah.
Claire Headley is in the chat.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Claire. I love Claire.
In here.
I babysat her kids before. I love Claire.
Oh,
hi, Claire.
She's one of our favorite people.
She's really lovely.
So awesome. Yeah.
Really lovely.
Anyway, I was going to say, Janis, just to start, why don't you mention, like, after you left the Sea organization in 1990, what were you and Paul's plans as far as having a family and everything? What went into that decision, and how did that go?
Well, when we left, I was actually already pregnant, probably about 2 months, because I thought I was pregnant longer, but I wasn't, and I ended up having. Anyway, I was pregnant when I left, and I had my son, John, and then we hadn't really discussed having more kids, and then because, we're struggling, trying to make money. We had no resumes when we started, and it was a whole new world. And then I became pregnant again, and so in June of 1994, Erin was born. So we had a 3-year-old boy and a brand new baby girl. And I used midwives because we didn't have any insurance. And John cost me $500 with a midwife, and I think Erin cost me about $1,000. So it was within my budget.
Girls are always more expensive.
Girls
are always more expensive.
Well, the prices had changed in those 3 years, but it might have been $800. But anyway, it was within my budget to scrape whatever I could together in order to pay the midwife for my second child.
But at least, even though I was maybe more expensive, I was less painful. So you're welcome.
Very true.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I was there for John's birth. I was there for John's birth when she had them in our apartment. I was upstairs,
yeah, you lived together.
But I worked with your mom and dad when you were born, but I wasn't around for that. You probably had that in your house then, Janis, right?
Yeah, we moved to the house. Yeah. But when John was born, you and Terry and Fernando, who lived with Paul and I, all went upstairs and hung out with Kenny. But I was in labor with John for like 23 hours. But then with Erin, it was like, I called the midwife in the morning and I said, she's going to come. They come and check. Nah, she's not coming this afternoon. And then at 11:30, I'm like, this baby is coming. And by 12:15, we were done.
12/28 is on my birth certificate.
Okay,
There you go.
we were done.
Juliana Betancourt. Hi, Juliana says, is that the trick? You pay more for less pain?
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay, Erin. Well, so we get started. I'll showing the photographs here, Janis. All right, and then we can walk through it. And Erin, you can comment and tell us the story. Okay. So
yeah, I'd love.
Here we go.
I have a lot to say about this.
Go right ahead.
I'm sure you want to talk about the photos, but I just want to say first.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. Go ahead. No worries. I just wanted to prepare people, I suppose, a little bit with my perspective, because my parents were only out of Scientology for 3 years once I was born. And my mom was born into it. So she barely knew the outside world by the time I was born. And I think because of how likable she is in general, she had all these friends who were also ex-Scientologists. And that really was the foundation of the world that I was coming into. It was kind of a very new relationship with the outside world. So it was delicate and a little bit unknown still. And then there was deep comfort in the connections that came from the church. And my mom has hundreds of friends all over the world that felt when we were with them like they were our family. And I think that's very unique because I got, in some aspects, the Scientology experience without ever being in it. And, parents who didn't really, when my dad, for instance, he didn't necessarily know how to address a problem with a child other than through Scientology practices. So there was also a little bit of that going on in my upbringing. So I just wanted that to be in everyone's mind when you go through the pictures and kind of show what it was like.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah, well,
that's a good. Go ahead, Janis.
To add to that, I actually remember when Erin and John would argue, I would have them sit down and do TRs and confront each other. Oh, they hated that.
Yeah. And my dad wanted me to read like the little kid Scientology books, like I think one of them was called How to Learn or something. And I just detested them. I wanted nothing to do with them from a young age, even though I was very interested in the people who had come out of the church. I had zero interest in the practices of the church. But I still got a little bit of it anyway, even though I had my resistance.
Listen, I just before we go, and I have a question I want to follow up on, but I just want to let the viewers know. If you have a question, go ahead and get in the chat and write question. We'll start. We're going to have a question and answer period at the end. We're also going to do a giveaway right before the question and answer. And that's a surprise as to what we're giving away. But anyway, I just want to let everybody know that. Get in the chat if you have a question. Please write it, and we'll answer everybody's chat. And you can also super chat us, super sticker us, whatever you want to do. We also always appreciate the support. I wanted to follow up with that, Erin. How much of Scientology or their history, Paul and Janis's history in Scientology, did you know, and at what age did you first realize that they were in Scientology?
Well, I started asking questions very young. I think I asked a lot more questions than my brother as well. And part of that is because when I got into first grade here in Las Vegas, when I got into first grade, the neighborhood that we lived in was mostly Mormon. So the kids I went to school with were all Mormon. And there was an actual thing amongst them where they could not play with you if you weren't a Mormon kid. And so they're starting to talk to me about God. And I was like, who's this God person? Like, nobody's mentioned God to me. I've lived all this time. It was like 6 years, but I was like, I've lived all this time and nobody's told me about God. And so I went home and I asked my dad, I said, what do we believe? Like, what's our family's thing? Because as far as I could tell, it was a family thing. And so I was asking him and he was like, well, we used to be in Scientology and we left that when John was born and we don't really believe anything and you can believe whatever you want. And I said, okay, but what do I call that? And he kind of laughed and he was telling a joke and I didn't know it at the time. It actually created a lot of trauma for me, but I forgive him. But he said, tell them we're pagan. And if you tell a Christian you're pagan, that is not a good thing. That is not a good thing. They will excommunicate you so fast, like it's not even funny. So I was actually outcast as a child in the play yard of my elementary school because my dad had me go tell all the Christians that I was a witch. And yeah. So I came home and I was so upset. I was like, dude, you can't do that to me. And he was like, I thought you knew it was a joke. And anyway, we got over it. And he said, no, really, we don't believe in anything. You can figure out for yourself whatever you want. And so I asked questions to my parents throughout the years as I was growing up about Scientology, because obviously if that many people go into something, there's some good reason, right? Like maybe it's not entirely true, but there's truth in it that's resonating in their heart. And that's why they choose it. And I think that's true for all the religions for the most part. And so I got very, very curious and I started studying lots of them. I went to lots of different churches with friends and I read books at home and I asked my parents questions when I could. And I wanted to really figure that out.
Did you ever learn about them Janis, your mother, being on the ship as a child and all that? Do you remember when she told you those stories?
I was really young. It was probably around that same age, 6 or 7 or something like that. And actually, I made a very, very important decision that has affected my entire life based on the story of my mother. And that's part of what I wanted to share, actually, is the choices we make really do affect our children and so on, because when I heard my mom's story and what my grandmother and grandfather had done in abandoning their children, I was baffled, just totally blown away. I couldn't comprehend why anybody would ever choose that. Even as a child, in my heart, I felt so much love for children in general. And I knew I was going to grow up with a desire to be a mother. And I love being a mom now. But hearing that, it was just unfathomable. And I asked her, I said, well, what was her reason? Because to my mom, she said, well, she had good reason. I said, what could possibly be that good reason? And she said something like, well, she thought she was saving the world. And to me, that didn't make sense, because how can you save the world and ignore the 3 children that you've made, right? That they're part of the world. So it wasn't a very good answer to me, but I accepted that was her choice. But as I grew up, I was very aware of that reality from my mom in her childhood. And I could see how it had affected the choices she was making for her own children. And in some ways it was positive, and in some ways it was like she didn't really know what to do in the moment because she didn't ever have anybody show her. And she'd figured some things out, but there was some things she just never approached because she didn't have her mom. And so that was maybe the harder side of things. But but I could really clearly see the conscious choices my mom was making to be the best mom that she could, because obviously it hurts to have that experience in your childhood. And to me, it was an expression of love from her whenever she showed up in ways that she never had. So knowing that story was very important, because I think it allowed me to give more love and honor and credit to my mom while she was showing up for me there in my life, and it was present every day, and she would go to all the activities, and she was my cheerleader, and she would really encourage me to do what I loved. And she did a really good job. She did a good job.
That's great. Janis, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So how did you learn how to be a parent or a mother when you were thrown into Scientology? You were born into it. You had no choice. You were in it, and you were on the ship. You really didn't have a choice. So how did you then, when you had kids, John and Erin, how did you become a mother? What did you do, and what did you turn to in order to figure out what to do?
Trial and error.
Well, I think that means you followed your heart, right? You just did what you thought was best. Yeah.
I did. Yeah. medical stuff, I'd always ask Paul because he had that whole nutrition knowledge, So I always left that up to him. But I do remember, like, when my kids, both of them, when one would hit 11 years old, and that was when I ended up on the ship. I mean, my mother left when I was 9, but I then spent a little time with her, but then she left again. So, and then at 11 was when I was on the ship. And I'd look at my kids at 11 years old and I'd go, what were they thinking? As in my parents, what were my parents thinking to give up us children at that age and think we'll be okay on a ship?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but with my kids, I didn't know anybody, when we moved to Las Vegas, didn't know anybody. So it was like I knew you.
Except for me and
Yeah.
ex-Scientologists who came with you.
Yeah, I knew you and Terry and Fernando and Kenny. I think that's all we had at that time.
Yeah.
And then we had a neighbor, Larry Mangicino, who we've always thought was a plant. Yeah, great guy, but we always suspected he might be reporting on us.
But we did have somebody reporting on us.
Lots of people. That was a weird thing too. I grew up with people are watching us and people are following us and people might not really be your friend. Like they might be spying on you. That was intense. I forgot about that actually.
Yeah.
Thank God I moved through the paranoia, but it was definitely a thing growing up. I was worried you guys might die suddenly.
Well, I remember when one of our offices got broken into, and I went to the daycare and I called the daycare and I said, no one is to pick up my children. Because I was like, is this some fair gaming that's being done?
Mm-hmm.
And so they had a standing order from me to never let anybody else pick up my kids. But that day I called. And then when Paul's car got stolen out of our driveway, again, it was like, are we being fair gamed? You just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my kids were like, I was all over it to protect them.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't feel like anything was ever going to happen to me because in my mind, I was like, well, I'm not an enemy of the church. Like I've literally done nothing to them. But I did worry about you guys like suddenly disappearing or dying or something terrible happening. Or I kind of was always waiting to hear about the next plant. Like once you guys would go, oh, they were a plant. They're gone from our life now. And I would hear it from like several people. I would always kind of be like, oh, where's the next one coming from? Because there's no way it's just going to be one.
Well, and that was a hard thing.
One. There was a lot.
No, and that was the hard thing for us. I wasn't born in Scientology, but I got in when I was 13, 14 years old. And then I would join staff right out of high school. And I was there until I left in 1990 at 32. But you trusted people in Scientology because you didn't lie. Okay, because if you lied, it would be found out. Okay, and we grew up in a group that self-reported and reported on each other if they saw somebody doing something wrong. So literally, that was a hard thing for me. I'm sure your parents probably had a similar thing. That when we came out, I was naive. I mean, literally, people could come up to me, and I always thought they had good intentions, and I had a blind spot. And I had a blind spot to it, and I got burned several times, So that was something that was really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a trickle down. Because, in some sense, like I said, I grew up where hundreds of people were family, and everybody was trusted, and I always told the truth, or at least to the best of my ability. Now I absolutely tell the truth because I've learned from that lesson. But I trusted people, but I always also had that slight sense of mistrust of anybody could be trying to harm you. But it kind of helped me live in integrity and expect integrity from people around me, because it was like, who cares if they're spying? If you're a good person and you're doing good, it doesn't even matter. They have nothing to report on. So I kind of looked at it that way. But once I got into the real world by leaving my family's home and going and being in college and traveling the world, because I was a model for a while. So I got to go a lot of places and meet a lot of people. And that's when I met real liars and understood the depth of deceit. And it wasn't that way when I was a kid, apart from a few plants here and there. And to me, That was the deceit and wickedness of corruption of power inside of the church. That's all that was. It wasn't something that I'd really spread around the world, other than maybe seeing it in other religions, where you can see as the power increases, the corruption starts to peek through.
Right, right. Well, we try not to call, you can call it a church. We try not to call it a church because, in my opinion,
Yeah.
it's not a church anymore. And trust me, I call it church all the time myself. But it's destructive in terms of the way it's set up and what it does
Totally.
to families, to people. Now, that being said, I got a lot of benefit out of it, and we've talked about that, Janis and I. There had to be something positive about it, otherwise nobody would be there, and we
Right.
wouldn't have stayed, for as long as we did. Did your mother ever talk to you about working for L. Ron Hubbard when she was on the ship?
Yeah, she did. I was pretty curious about that. I remember when I was a child, I didn't understand LRH and I didn't know anything about him. So to me, there was a little bit of like a starstruck sense of importance. Like I hadn't matured enough to realize what power actually is. So from my very childlike view, it was like, oh, my mom was important and she got to do all these things. She's so special. That's so cool. I love my mom. Like that was really the perspective. But then as I got older and I heard more and more stories about him, I was like, okay, I got to rethink things here, because that sounds like abuse, and that sounds like delusion, and that sounds like, it was just, the more she told me, the more I was like, wait a minute. But I also knew that she was born into it, like it was said. So I never attached his reality to my mom's. It just became more a view of like, okay, she worked for him. She has an inside view, and that's just her story. It de-escalated,
Well, just so I'm gonna sing her praises, because she's not gonna brag about herself, okay? But your mom was a superstar, okay? And your grandmother was a superstar, and so was your grandfather in terms of being Scientologists at the time. Yeah. Now they're out. Peter, your grandfather's out. Your dad and your mom are out and all that. But literally, your mom did amazing things at a very young age, and she had a lot of responsibility. I don't know if she ever told you that. And your dad had a lot of responsibility as well. I mean, he did things that most people have never done in their life. You know what I mean? Before I think your dad was like 34 when he left. Same thing. Your mom was like 34, right? And I was 32. I did things I could never imagine having done in my life. So, there was a lot of responsibility, and your mom, like I said, she was a superstar. She still is too. But I'm just saying, in the Scientology world, her, people looked up to her. Okay. And then her mother, Yvonne, is like the second almost to Hubbard in terms of the public image, in terms of being a beloved figure, so I don't know if you knew that or not, but your mom probably doesn't brag about herself.
No, I do. And well, that's the thing. She would say things very casually. And like, I remember, Mark, we were driving to the airport one time and you told me, you were like, didn't you know that your mom and dad were responsible for like buying a ship and then crewing the entire thing? I was like, what? Like a lot of the things I would find out from you or other people, but she would say things where she just throw it out casually, like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that's amazing. And she wouldn't even realize it. But I did learn over time, they were both, I mean, I say were because my dad is obviously passed, but both of my parents are amazing people who've done amazing things, who are very, very capable, very smart.
Yeah, and your Aunt Terry.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing. Yeah, I know. My family's amazing. I'm so blessed. But really, it was interesting because when I was growing up, we weren't allowed to tell anybody that my family had come from Scientology. It had to be a secret. So there was kind of confusion. There was a little bit of shame. There was a little bit of like fear and concern about it ever being revealed. And that was a reality when I was younger. But as I got older and I started to tell people more, I noticed that they actually more had a fascination than a rejection kind of energy. And so I grew into the story myself. And I, now I think it's so cool because it makes us so unique. And when I was younger, I just wanted to fit in. And now I see the value of being completely your unique expression. And so acknowledging the amazing things that my grandparents and my parents have achieved, it's very helpful to me in my goals, because I meant to say earlier, my grandmother's story and my mother's story, even though there was that tragedy in it, it inspired me from a young age. I didn't mention the decision. The decision that I'd made in that young age was, I am going to save the world and be an awesome mom, and I'm going to do it together. And my children will be with me the whole way. And right. I could see in my mom that she'd made that sort of commitment too, but in a slightly different way, because she had to go off to work. And so even though she was always there for activities and she was very much like present at home, we had dinner together every night, we went on trips together all the time, like she was there. But now that I have my own child, who I've spent I spend all my time with her in a healthy way, but you know, she's like, we're very connected, and I have managed to find ways to work from home and for it always to be of service to the world, because I need to keep that commitment to myself to honor the wish of my grandmother's heart, my mother's heart, and my own heart, which is to be of service to the world. And I need to be of high service to my own family and to be there for her. And because of the connection we have, I know that if I went and got a job where I'm never home, it would just be so destructive to her. It would be the opposite of this line of healing that has started with my grandmother and come down to me. And
well, Erin, I was going to say, that's how I was raised back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The mothers stay home and the fathers worked, right? So I always had my mother there. So that's a full-time job, and every mother knows that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's difficult when you've got to work as well as take care of your family. And you're that's the other thing too. Both your dad and your mother, they started a business basically from scratch, not knowing anything about the mortgage business whatsoever. Yeah. Okay.
Which was so helpful when I started my own businesses that I had no idea about. I just went and asked them. I was like, how do I do all this? And they knew.
And they made it big. They did really well. They were very successful. Your mother's was the president of the Mortgage Brokers Association in the state of Nevada. I mean, so it can be done, you know what I mean? So that's what I try and tell people. They did amazing things,
for sure.
Yeah, and
very
that's what
inspiring.
I try and tell people. Yeah, and the other people that you met too. I mean, the same thing. I mean, I'm not praising Scientology, but we were trained to make it go right.
Very good.
To make it, really. Disciplined.
It's solution oriented. Like there was no option other than the fix, which I think is actually really revelatory of the type of people and why I felt such a draw to the people and not the teachings and organization, because all of those people joined because of a desire in their heart to be of service and to fix problems. They actually want a better world. And maybe there was a failure in how it was actually, executed. But again, that goes back to the leaders are very, very important. If you're going to be a leader, you can't also have an ego. You can't. That's the issue. And so I felt like I was very blessed because I did get to grow up around people where it was like, life is going to hit you hard sometimes. That's just reality. But you always find a way. If you have to reach out to your network, then you do it. But before you do that, you pull up your bootstraps and you do what you have to do and you figure out a solution and you run through the information until you find that solution. And I think evidence of that kind of mindset is apparent in every person who's ever left Scientology. All of you have had to find a way, and quite a lot of you had to do it on a foundation of no knowledge of the outside world. So I think that's the really beautiful thing to see in all of these ex-Scientologists, is that they are lovers of humanity who wish well-being upon the world, and they are available to be of service to other people when the opportunity arises. They're good people who have been hurt by bad people.
Absolutely. And that's the difference between the people that you met outside of Scientology and the people that are running it, and the reason
and
we
stayed.
left is that
That's
we
what I
had
mean.
compassion. Compassion was missing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like you're either an enemy or you're with the program, right? So there's no in between, like, oh, I messed up, and there's compassion, let's fix it. You know, your mother, your father, people, you know, we're like that, you know, and that's what was missing, and that's one of the reasons why we're no longer part of it. Yeah.
Compassion is totally the right word. And that's why I could feel like they were actually my family, because they had good hearts. Everybody that I connected with, whether I got very close to them or not, they all had really good hearts.
Yeah.
Still have. I still get to see them.
I'm putting up some comments. People are commenting in the chat.
Thank you.
Janis, and then the protectiveness came. Paul was more protective at first, right? About don't say anything about Scientology or anything like that, right? And then you were too. I mean, we were wary at first, but I got to the point where I would just tell anybody. I didn't really care as long as I knew them.
Well, I didn't. I kept it quiet until until
I was done with school, I think. And
well,
moved out.
2009. No, 2009. I kept it quiet, but then a newspaper article came out in the Tampa Bay saying what happened in Vegas.
Right.
And there was a whole story about Terry and Fernando, Paul and I and you and Kenny, and, you know, all of us in Vegas, and the PIs on us. Whose phone is that?
Not mine. Oh, it's mine's vibrating. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
You can hear that. It's like vibrating.
Yeah, we could hear it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. What was I saying?
About
the
article in 2009.
Oh, yeah. So that article came out, and that kind of, I had a release with it coming out, and I said, I don't have to withhold this so much. And I remember making a call to Jack Trossel, and because he's the one who was telling me that Dave LeBeau was a private investigator. And Jack was like so innocent. Oh yeah, Dave LeBeau was in town. You know, he's not really a loan officer. He's here on a case as a private investigator. You know, and that's when I'm like, ding, 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 ding. But when that article came out, I called Jack, who was in Florida, and I said, hey, Jack, this article has just come out and exposes Dave LeBeau as a Scientology PI. Now, Jack didn't even really know we'd been Scientologists or our involvement, though we'd known him for 19 years.
Yeah.
But it was a surprise to him. And then all my other friends, it was kind of a surprise to them that they'd known me for so long and had no clue that I had this past as a Scientologist. And that's when I actually started writing my books, because I felt a release that it was like a weight was taken off of me. And I slowly started writing my books. And then once my book was ready and released, Erin was at college at the time. So I had no more kids at home, and I could do what I want, because Paul was afraid I'd bring the church down on us. But I was so ready by that point. So
yeah. Erin, so when you got older, right, and you were like in high school and then going to college and all that, obviously you started a spiritual journey of some sort, right? Did you start searching, and how did that go, and what was going on at the time?
It went so well. I'm so happy that I did it. No, really. I think it's so perfect that I was born into the family that I was born into, because even though, like my mom said, nobody knew that they had any past the Scientology, within our home, we were free. And so, like, I recalled my first past life when I was 4 years old or 5 years old. I was pretty young. And we were on a vacation somewhere, and my mom was able to confirm it in that moment. And she'd said it so casually to me, because I was like, how am I remembering this place if we've never been here? And I'm telling you all these things. She was like, oh, well, it just must be your past life or something. And she, again, was so casual that I was like, okay, that's just reality then. Like, I guess we have past lives. And I was very open to it. And so throughout my childhood, I had many, many ways where past lives would just come up, and I was very aware of it. And it really took me through the process of understanding death, because a lot of the recalls, like I recalled a transition between lives, and being able to easily connect with and recall so many lives, I felt less fearful about this one in general, about any of them. It kind of felt like, okay, we're doing our best, we're evolving, and we're moving through lessons, and here we go. It's that, to me, was like just a very clear reality because of my life experience. But as I was still trying to figure out God, right? The question of God, and Scientology doesn't mention it at all. And all these other churches talked about God, but in different ways, and then fought about it. And so there was like a lot of confusion. And when I was about 14, my dad, he was very angry when he left the church, just to be completely real. He was not a nice person, and I did not like him when I was a child. And when I was about 12, maybe, he suddenly became really different. Maybe I was 13. He became really different. And it was so different that I went to my brother and I was like, am I nuts? Or is this like a different person who's our dad? And he was like, no, you're right. Like, he really is so changed. I said, okay, let's go figure this out. And we went and sat down with him. And I was like, dude, what's up? And he started to tell me about this book that he found called A Course in Miracles, or it might have been Disappearance of the Universe at the time. And then he moved into A Course in Miracles. But he'd been given it by some other ex-Scientologists who, after leaving the church, were still searching for some kind of spiritual fulfillment. And he said that when he read it, it just resonated as true. And it taught him what real forgiveness is. And he started to change. He changed a lot because he was forgiving all of this anger that was in him over having to leave the church before he was ready. Because he actually only left because my mom was pregnant. He wasn't really ready to go yet. And you know, his children were actively rejecting what he still partially believed in. So yeah, he wasn't very nice. And then he suddenly became nice. And as he was telling me about this book, my heart lit up. It just like was singing, like, this is the truth. I know it's the truth. And it was bizarre because my mind couldn't comprehend it. Like, I knew he was telling me the truth, but I had no idea what he was saying at the exact same time. And so I had a lot of questions, and he suggested I read the book. And like I said, I was 14 when I started to actually read it. And it took me until I was 18 to finish reading it. That was Disappearance of the Universe was the book. And the foundation of that really led me from there. And ultimately, I decided to just ask God directly, are you real? Are you real? And can you show me and confirm for me what's the truth? Because all these people are saying all these things, and I don't think any of them are right. And I have had direct revelation many, many times. I've experienced more miracles than I could count. I know God is real, but I think it's something that every person individually has to ask for, has to cultivate. And I think communities can be great when you share good morals and good intentions, but the religious experience should become a me-ligious experience, as Christopher Witecki would say. Me-ligious, like, you have to have your own spiritual reality and connection, and, you know, leave everybody else out of that. I think it gets messy when you try to force that. Oh, the book.
Yeah, who suggested the book?
You mean which people?
The Course in Miracles.
Go ahead, say the name. Say the name of the course in the book.
Okay, so the books were Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard, and the other book is A Course in Miracles by the Foundation for Inner Peace. And those were recommended by Gail and Steve Irwin. And I think also Fernando, my uncle Fernando, because he and Terry had started reading it, and Fernando was raving about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to comment. I knew your dad a long time, right? And I worked for him even after leaving Scientology, right? And
Yeah.
Janis will confirm this. He was really, we call it red on white, green on white. L. Ron Hubbard says, "Do this. This is what we do." Even after we left Scientology, he still was very much that way, right? And we call our channel "Peeling the Onion," okay? Because it takes time for people to get out of the mindset of being in the cult of Scientology. And it sounds like it took your father a good 20 something years to get out of that, right?
Yeah.
And I had similar problem. Yeah, I had similar problem with your father because I worked for him up until 2000. And I'm not going to go into the details, but basically I decided I was going to leave the mortgage company that your mother and your father had and go to another company because I could make more money, just like anybody else, any other employee, right? Well, your dad took it the wrong way and he basically disconnected from me. Like I used to babysit you and your brother John when you were kids. I'd take you to the movies and things like that. All of a sudden I could no longer, I was not invited to things. This is in 2000, right? I couldn't come to parties. The only person that stayed in touch with me was your mother, and we've been friends and tight that entire time. But your father had basically cut me off, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't hold any animosity.
He had pretty strong grievances. When he would get a grievance, it was intense. Yeah.
Yeah, and he wouldn't move, right? But anyway, eventually though he softened, right? I mean, basically around 2015, 16 is when I noticed it because all of a sudden I was invited to things and I could go do things. We went on a cruise together, and Paul, your dad Paul is a great guy, and we he's very smart, and we would talk and we got along and all that sort of stuff. So it seemed like he put behind him whatever it was that was holding this anger in place, and so we were able to reestablish a relationship before he passed.
Yeah, I think it was 2009 because that was when I was a freshman in high school and John graduated that year. So 2009 would have been when that was when I started reading the book, and he would have been reading the book maybe a year or two before then. But it took him time. He had layers of things to go through. But I think that's everybody, not just Scientology, but it's actually kind of what inspired me to want to come on here was I started writing a blog post about how healing is there's layers to it. There's physical, there's mental, emotional, and there's spiritual. And I instantly, when I started writing it, I thought about your guys' show, how it's peeling the onion. And I was like, in some way, these conversations are going through the layers of healing and working together to heal these things. And because I was connected to people who were in the church and are now out of the church, some of my own personal healing from my childhood was hearing from them like, oh, that's a church thing. Like, that's not your parents being a certain way to you because you are not good enough. That is how they operate in the church. That's a programming that they haven't come out of yet, right? Like, because my dad disconnected from me too, but it would be for like a day. Like, we'd get really upset. And it was like, I'm not talking to you, right? So we had our own mini experiences in our household in connection to the culture of Scientology that hadn't quite washed off yet.
Yeah.
But by the time he'd passed, man, he was awesome. We had the coolest, deepest spiritual talks, and it was very cool getting to go on that journey together because we essentially started it together. And throughout the years, he was who I would call to talk about, the expansion of my consciousness in terms of spirituality. Because even though he had wounds from Scientology, they are different from my mom's wounds. So they both explored different things in terms of healing first. And for him, I think it was more profound to heal his spiritual wound because he'd been in the world before. My mom had never been in the world. She had different things that she needed to focus on. Her whole life had been about a spiritual calling. And it was kind of like, okay, enough. Let me focus on building a life and like surviving here as a family and being there for my kids. So she had different things that she had to address coming out of it versus my dad. And I think part of what he also had to learn was just because you could yell and scream at people when you're in charge in Scientology doesn't mean you can do that in the outside world. And you got to get some decorum and to like present better, you know, you got to do better. And he did. They both healed a lot of things in all of that time.
Janis, do you want to jump in here and comment?
Well, yeah, well, a lot of the healing for me, I didn't go the spiritual route or anything. What helped me was having my old friends. They were my comrades from the days on the ship and even at the Gold Base. I mean, they were loyal friends. I knew them. They weren't paid friends. I never knew when I had a paid friend or not. You know, by paid friend, I mean a private investigator or someone sent me to spy.
I had one for 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Because we had people show up to go horse riding with us, you know, and it's like they never asked us questions about our past because they obviously already knew about our past and they were obviously being paid. So I trusted all my old friends that I grew up with who were like brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. And that is what helped me with my healing.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's great. That's fantastic. Now, hey,
what
Erin,
about you, Mark? Can I ask
me?
you? Yeah, what about you?
Go ahead. Ask
away. Same question. What was it like for you when coming out, like that you needed to focus on first for healing?
Well, when I first came out, it was basically let's earn a living because we had no money. I mean, so it was survival to start with. But when I came out of Scientology, I mean, we were still true believers, all of us, your mother, your father, Terry, we were all like, for about a year or two, we were waiting for Hubbard to come back. And then we would go back into Scientology. I mean, literally that was our viewpoint when we first left. Right. But over time, and it didn't take long, I started to realize that I'd done my time, that I had, you know, spent enough time in there and that I was going to enjoy my life. And if it wasn't fun, I wasn't going to do it. And I was going to go out there and try to make money and move on. Right. But I read books, you know, your Aunt Terry in 1993, I think it was, she had me read the book Barefaced Messiah by Russell Miller about Hubbard. And that opened my eyes quite a bit because we had been lied to about Hubbard's past and his history. And there were several things in there that really registered with me to the point where I went, well, this is crap, right? The only thing that I haven't, and then I've always been spiritual, right? I mean, I'm the same like you. I believe in past lives. I have absolute certainty for myself that that's what happens when we die. And so that's never been shaken. The other thing, though, that's never been shaken is I had a lot of wins and gains in Scientology through my processing, my one-on-one counseling. And I'm not letting anybody shake those from me, right? But I could see that the policies and the procedures that Hubbard had for managing business and this and that, that's not how it is in the real world. So it was real world experience that really got me to start going like, okay, well, there's a better way to do things and it doesn't have to be this way. And so I just reached out that way. And that's basically it. You know, I basically took on the idea or the philosophy that I don't really care what people think. Okay, spiritually, they can believe whatever they want. I don't care if you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. As long as you're doing good and you're not hurting people, believe whatever you want. What I don't like is hypocrites who say one thing and then do other things. And that's really what Scientology is. It says one thing and it turns around and it tries to destroy families and people's lives. And that's not why we got involved in Scientology. And that's why we left. You know, I left because Miscavige, I could see David Miscavige. I worked for him for 6 years and I could see him turning to the dark side, like really dark. He beat me up. And I went, I'm not sticking around for this. That's not how my parents raised me, you know?
Yeah. My dad, so one of the stories that I heard it a few times growing up, but it really stood out to me. It was because you mentioned seeing him turn, like you watched the evolution of DM in terms of corruption. He wasn't always that way. Right. And my dad, I remember him telling me a story. I don't remember if I'm correct on this first part, but Mom, wasn't he like the photographer at your wedding?
Miscavige, David Miscavige. Yeah.
So, I was like, what do you mean? Why'd you invite that guy to your wedding? And Dad was like, no, he was great before. Like we were friends.
He was,
and then
you guys went on Liberty together. You went on Liberty together. He actually was fun.
He told me that he was like, I actually know the exact moment he turned. He said it was very scary to witness, but he had some kind of allergic reaction or something. And my dad was chief medical officer. Mom, you can correct me in a moment, but my dad was medical officer. And so he was responsible for taking DM to the hospital. And it was in the hospital after a near-death experience of sorts, where DM, the first thing he said to my dad was, power is assumed. And as soon as he said it, my dad went, the look in his eyes with the realization that power is something you just assume. He was like, oh, it was scary. He said, I did not know what was going to happen from there. And what happened from there was he assumed power, and he did it however he needed to. But it was an assertion of himself through his own willpower that he gained it. And I think I don't think it's wrong to gain power through an assertion of self. I think it's wrong to do it at any means necessary, right? To lose all morals when you're moving into power. And that seems to be a choice that DM made. But my dad, he was like, in some ways, I feel responsible for the monster of DM because I saved his life. I said, Dad, it was your job. It was your duty. You had to save his life. You had to.
Well, we definitely would give him a hard time for it.
But I might have been wrong. Was it a food allergy or something?
It was an asthma attack.
Okay.
He had asthma and it was yeah.
But it was a near-death experience. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and Paul had to rush him to the hospital. Shelley came banging on the door at 3 a.m. And yeah, so Paul got into the hospital and he had that epiphany or whatever it's called.
Epiphany, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, Erin, it's really funny that that you say that. Paul observed that, because I know Janis and Paul would both agree with me. Miscavige is very effective. Like, he can get things done. Okay, now his ways of doing it turned darker and darker and darker, but he was trusted to do things. Okay, so and he would get them done, just like your mother and your father. They got things done. I mean, that was just the viewpoint. And Miscavige had a high level of being able to do that. What was missing, though, was the compassion, and the treating people with respect. And that's the darkness that was in him, unfortunately. And that's what overtook him.
You know what's so weird to me, though, and I'm just going to throw this out there. If you're in a culture that believes in reincarnation, in some sense, you believe in karma. That was the point of auditing, right? Like, you're trying to work out past life karma. So it's bizarre to me that anybody within the church, especially the head of that church, I know you don't call it a church, but in terms of like spiritual work, it's bizarre that you would not have any consideration for the karma that you are compiling for yourself with all of those dark choices. Really, really strange. And actually, that was part of what completely turned me off to that religion and belief system. Was I could see the hypocrisy very clearly from a young age of like, I don't think you really believe what you're saying you believe, and this is more about an ego power move than anything else. Or it's maybe I'm wrong in that assumption, but it's become about something other than the original purpose. And that might have even started with LRH. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, it comes from Hubbard, because Hubbard, it was always, we're in a race against time. We have to clear this planet. We have to save mankind. Anything else that gets in the way is useless. That means no time off. That means you're dedicated. That means you do this. And that's the viewpoint you have when you become a Sea organization member, is that you got to get it done. We're running out of time. Rather than just enjoying life, doing things, making things better, watching them expand, it becomes a do or die all the time. Right, Janis? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, in 1978, I remember Hubbard said we had 5 years to clear the planet because the Markabians were coming.
Okay.
And that's long past.
Well, and I'll tell you, my father, after he was in Scientology, and he left in 1980. Okay, and because he got involved with this other cult. Okay, my dad's no longer alive, right? But he got involved in this other cult, and this cult leader of that said the world's going to end by 2010. You know what I mean? So we got to
There's
get
been
ready
so
for
many ends
2010.
of the world.
I mean, they're always it's a way of maintaining control over their
Right.
quote unquote flock by saying
Mhm.
the end of the world's coming. You know what I mean? Jehovah's
got that
Witnesses,
happening
only
right
so many
now.
people. Yeah, and it's just
It's always the end
yeah,
of the world. Yeah.
I know.
Well, and you know, it's interesting because part of my spiritual journey did include science, because of who my dad is. He was so scientific and so analytical, and he wasn't willing to believe anything without proof. And those spiritual books that I mentioned, the principles in them do align with what has now been proven by quantum physics with the unified field theory. To an extent, I think that the information in those books actually goes beyond the physical universe, but it explains it. And so, you know, what that all states, quantum physics, what it states is that we're all connected, and we're all one, and it's all a vibrational universe, and your personal frequency matters. So the energy you do things in matters. You're going to perpetuate that energy by choosing it in that moment. So if you're trying to make a better world, it's not going to be by rushing and panicking and oh my God, it's going to be, like you said, like chill out, have a good life, set things up properly so that you can be self-sufficient, so you can be sovereign, so you can be at peace, set your life up that way and watch it expand. And I think
that's kind of my philosophy of life too.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers, right? But I decided I'm not going to worry about things anymore. I'm just going to live my life.
And that is the answer though, right?
No, I know. But I mean, it's like, okay, I am political to a degree, right? But I decided, you know what? All I can do is vote. I'm not to get political here. I can't change things that aren't something I could. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to do what I can do. And that's the way I try and live my life. Okay. I'm not super successful, but I'm happy, you know, and a lot of people chase the dream of big house, big boat, big car, big this, and they're not happy, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a simplicity towards, you know, dealing with your life and not worrying about things so much. So that's you asked about what I've evolved to, and that's where I'm at. You know, there's things that I like to do, and I've decided I'm not going to worry about it. You know, if I die tomorrow, I'm going to come back another lifetime. That's my belief, right? But you know, that's just the way to go. Rather than being concerned about other people all the time, I help. You know, but it's not really my job to make somebody stop drinking or quit drugs. If they want to do it, I'm there to help them, but I can't make them do it.
Yeah. And I feel very similarly, like, I think we all have our role. And for some people, I believe the most beneficial aspect of existence that they can create for themselves in a moment is to just be at peace and just do what makes them happy. And for other people, and I would include myself in this category, what makes me happy is actively helping. So I love coming up with business ideas that are really powerfully impactful. And I've got many that I want to achieve, but I'm taking it easy. I'm moving there in a pace that doesn't kill me, right? Because what's the point of doing it? You lose the love and the joy from it if you add the stress and the worry. So if it's really your heart's desire, you have to go there with the currency of the heart, which is going to be love and peace. So I think we're pretty similar on that. And I think it's just each unique character that's expressing out in the world all has different ways that they can find that fulfillment. But it's definitely not having the biggest and the best of everything. That doesn't necessarily equal fulfillment.
Right. Let me show this. I'm not going to go through all the photos because we don't have time. This has actually been more interesting to me, but I want to show this photo here because who's that?
My little baby. I love her.
So do I.
Yes, you do.
Little Elizabeth.
Elizabeth has showed up on our channel several times, including one time not wearing anything right behind Janet.
But every time I'm like, Grandma's doing a show. You can't go in there. And one time she wanted to run in to tell you about dog poop. And I was like, no, you can't. And she goes, I will. And then she ran in. And I was like, okay, they're going to hear about dog poop.
So she's a little independent, little spiritual being too, isn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's good, but she's
Yeah.
so sweet. She's such a sweet girl
She
and all
is.
that. But I just wanted to show that. Listen, I wanted to go ahead and show what are you doing now. I want to show the slides of the what you're doing. We're an hour into this right now, and then we'll go to questions and we have a giveaway. But I wanted to go ahead and show what you do right now. So why don't you tell people about Healed by Oracle?
Yeah. So I, like I said, I have a personal relationship with God now. So for me, that means living in surrender. And I don't think that can totally be understood unless you actually do surrender yourself to live in alignment with the Holy Spirit. But what it looks like for me is I just make myself available. And when I've been doing it for years. And so a few years ago, the thing that the Holy Spirit created through me when I was in surrender was my CBD salve. And it's amazing. It's so cool. I could not have made it without the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. I really couldn't. The formula came to me. I made it. I had to change it one time, and then it was pretty much set. And I make it at home. I consciously put loving energy into it because, like I said, it's a vibrational universe. So I take the time to send the most uplifting, healing energy that I can into every single batch. And I make it from my heart. I make it because I genuinely want the people of the world to be well and to have ease from pain. And so that's one of the things that I do. And other than that, I make paintings. That's rather new, but it's been very, very cool because, again, I just surrender and I have no idea what's going to come out of me. And
I'm going to show that in just one second.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention though about the healing salve, right? You gave me a sample of it, and I've used it a few times when I've had ligaments or something that are they hurt. There's inflammation or whatever, and it definitely works. And it's what I like about it is it's moisturizing too. And can you tell people why that is?
Well, my dad was very knowledgeable in sense of natural health solutions. So I grew up hearing about all sorts of things, like what the real solution was if you're going to go about it the natural way. And I was a model for many years. So I used a lot of different products. I was sent a lot of different products. So I kind of had a general store in my mind of what is good and what is not. And so I don't know, I just kind of threw it together intuitively, but it's got only 6 ingredients. It's all natural. The ingredients are listed on the website and on the jar, but I'll just throw it out there. It's coconut oil, CBD, beeswax, vitamin E, shea nut oil.
Is there emu something?
And emu oil. I love the emu oil. I had never heard of it until I made this. And I looked into it. People are welcome to research it. It's great for so many reasons. It's actually really eco-friendly because emus are very high maintenance and they need the highest standard of living conditions or else they just die. So they get treated very well. There's already an active emu meat industry, and the emu oil is a byproduct of the fat that gets thrown away. So it creates less waste by using it. And it turns out that there's incredible nutrients in that oil. It's the closest oil to human skin oil, and human pores, they will not open to accept just anything. They will not absorb just anything. So if you notice some oils, they sit on top of your skin. Emu oil is close enough to our own skin oil that it does get absorbed, and it carries the CBD with it. So other CBD oils might not be going that deep, but this one, because of the emu oil, it goes very deep. So people who have bone-on-bone pain have found relief with this. People with arthritis have found relief from this. And it's been amazing hearing the stories from people. I had no idea how healing it was going to be until I put it out there and the people started telling me about it. But yeah, that turned out to be a very key ingredient, the emu oil.
And Janis, you've had friends use this as well, right?
Oh yeah, well, Romina Nunley.
Oh yeah.
Oh, she had problems with her hands, and she uses it on her hands, and she can use them, and the pain's gone. And on her neck, she was going to the chiropractor several times a week, and now she's been able to cut it back because it's been helping her so much. I even sometimes get a pain here in my hand, and I just put a little bit of it on, and the pain goes away. So I'm happy with it too.
Ramina was going, I think, every 3 days, and then she was able to go 3 weeks without a visit to the chiropractor from using it every night. So I don't know the extent of why it's working so well. Like, I don't know what's happening under your skin. I just know what I've shared with you. Everything else to me is a miracle, and I love hearing about it.
Well, I wanted to mention to everybody that's watching, if you're interested in getting some of the Oracle healing salve, you can go to her website at www.healedbyoracle.com. And anybody who's listening right now, you get a 10% discount coupon if you decide to buy it. The code is ONION10, and it's valid from today through the 6th of September. Okay.
Next Wednesday.
But as a special, we're going to do a giveaway. That's going to be the surprise giveaway in the chat here in just a few minutes here. We're going to give away one of these to whoever gets it in the chat. Okay. So stay tuned for that. We'll be to that in just a few minutes. But you mentioned your painting. Oh, go ahead,
Yes.
Janis. Did you have some? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah. So the paintings, I didn't know I could paint. Honestly, I was going
to say, this is pretty amazing.
Thank you. Well, that's the thing. I surrendered to the Holy Spirit, and amazing things came out of me. I sit down and I have no clue what's going to come out by the end. It blows me away as I do it, but I just stay in surrender. And it's really cool, actually, because when I do commissions for specific people, I will hear like limiting beliefs come into my head or issues that they might be having. And because of my kind of third party stance, it's very easy for me to pray about it and uplift it. So for me, as I'm working, it's like an energetic reflection that these paintings are giving me of the conscious work I'm doing to uplift the client. And it's been really, really cool hearing back from people who have them hanging in their home, like what their own transformation has been from either meditating on it or having that energy in their house. It's really cool. They all have different themes. And it's just been very interesting.
They're really great. I don't know how you do that. The symmetry, like for instance, in like that, I don't know how you get it so exact. It's pretty amazing.
I sit quite close to it.
It's all freehand. It's all freehand. No rulers or pencils or anything like that.
Every now and then I use a ruler, but for the most part, it's freehand.
Okay.
I get very close and I'm very detailed.
Did you do art in school, or is it just something that came later?
That's what I mean. Like, I always loved art, but I never felt like it was going to be something I could do. That's the one I'm working on right now. Actually, I'm almost done with it. I never expected it to be something I do, but it's been really great, and I love doing it. And I'm excited to see what happens with it all.
That's fantastic. Anyway, if you're interested in any of Erin's artwork, or you'd like to commission an art piece, email Erin at connect@healedbyoracle.com, and she'll be happy to do something for you. And we'll look forward to doing that. Yeah, that's basically what you're doing right now, is your art and the Oracle healing, right? In terms of work and that type of thing.
I do also do astrology readings. I'm quite skilled at it. I haven't done it for a while, but I decided recently I'm available to do it. I think it's something that's helped me a lot. Essentially, it's your instruction manual for the character that you're living as now. Because like we said, we all believe in multiple lives here, and it's revealed in your birth chart, things that are connected to your past lives and where you're going next. And it tells you your energetic wiring right now. And it really can bring a lot of clarity and a lot of support to your own conscious evolution. So I highly recommend that people get a reading and that they get to know the details. And so they can also email me about that if they are interested in having astrology readings.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to go to questions and answers here. Go ahead, Janis. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to just point out, I did say she was smart beyond her years.
Because I can remember thousands of years.
Hey, in Scientology, it's trillions.
Okay, I haven't discovered that many, though. I'm still expanding.
Listen, everybody, we're going to go to questions. So if you have a question, get in the chat, write question. If you want to super chat us or super sticker us, we'd appreciate the support. I just wanted to mention, we're going to do the giveaway here in just a minute too. Our membership is going really well. So if you're interested in joining and you haven't joined our membership, please do. Janis and I did several one-on-ones with our peeling masters this week, and they were a lot of fun. So if you're interested in joining our channel, just go to our homepage and click on that join button, follow that. And then also our merchandise website, we put it live today just to get it up and make sure that it's working and everything. So you'll be seeing stuff on that too. But if you're interested in shopping or buying some of our Peeling the Onion merchandise, our Rock Slam, the likes, mouse pad, things like that, all you have to do is hit the shopping link on our website, and you can go from there, and things are available to you. Okay, Janis, so we're going to do a giveaway of Erin's Oracle Healing Salve, right?
Erin, you want to do the countdown?
Well, we got to let
Stop
people get in the
five.
chat. We've got to let everybody get in the chat first because it takes a minute. Anyway, if you're interested in winning, this is a giveaway, okay? Just get in the chat, say me, say solve me, or whatever, pick me, anything you want. Just get in the chat. We're going to do a countdown, and whoever we choose, okay, it's random. You're going to email Janis at her email address, which I'm going to put up here right now because I'm buying time for people to get in the chat and to ask. You're going to email Janis at janisgilhamgrady@gmail.com, your contact information and where you want the salve sent to you, and we will take care of that for you. Go ahead.
This
Janis.
is U.S. only. U.S.
Yeah,
only,
it's U.S.
right?
only. We can't ship it overseas, but anywhere in the United States. So if you're in the
it
United
gets
States,
too expensive.
if you're in the United States, get in the chat, okay?
I will just say really quickly,
Yeah.
if you know CBD is illegal in your state, we cannot send it to you. There's only five. I think there's only 5 states where it's not legal. But if you know that it's not legal there,
we don't want anybody getting busted. Okay, so get in there, everybody, and we'll do a countdown. And Erin, we'll let you count down, okay. From 5, and then when you hit the 1, I'll go ahead and pick somebody. Okay.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Duchess Diana, it's legal in Massachusetts. So Duchess Diana, you win the CBD healing salve, and I think you'll like it. And we'll expect, once you get it and you try it out, a testimonial from you in the chat here coming up in the future. So anyway, we want to congratulations, Duchess Diana, and thank you for everybody else who participated in the giveaway. And Duchess Diana, what you need to do is email Janis, janisgilhamgrady@gmail.com, your name, address, and contact information, and we will get that shipped out to you. Okay. So congratulations.
That's funny because Duchess Diana had already said that she's into astrology too, and she was going to email Erin and try the lotion. So she just won the lotion.
Oh, cool.
Well, and she says, hey, yay, thank you, my first win. Well, that's great, Duchess Diana. We appreciate you watching and being in the chat and everything, okay? All right, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the questions and answers here. We've got about 15, 20 minutes here. So I'll go ahead and get started, and we will go from that, okay? First question here is from Dastardly Saboteur. He's a member of our channel. Thank you for the question. Was Paul raised in Scientology?
No.
Janis?
No, he got into Scientology when he was about 19, 20 years old.
In college, right?
I think he was 20 or 21 because he had 1 credit left in his
That's
pre-med.
right, in college.
He was pre-med at Ohio State, and he
got in Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He knew he didn't want to finish his degree. It felt like it was going against his moral standards, and so he was looking for something else. And somebody showed up that night with some books from Scientology, and he went, "Yeah, this is it. I'm going to go." And he went, I think that night, right, Mom? Or the next day?
Yeah,
it was like immediate.
No, he did.
But he was raised in a Christian church. I'm not exactly sure which one, but in Ohio, he did go to church on Sundays. And he told me that when he was a kid, I don't know if I'm allowed to say a curse word on here, but he said that he felt like it was bullshit and he,
That's
even
okay,
when he
you can
was
say
very, very little. And so he was never going to be a long-term Christian. But interestingly enough, he did come back to Christ by the end. It was just the way A Course in Miracles presented it that resonated with him as truth, not the way the church of the world presents it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that question, Dastardly. Another question, Donna Jenkins, another member of our channel. Question: what is your religion now, Erin?
I suppose I could technically be classified as a Christian because I do believe in Christ, but again, it's different from the worldview of Christianity. So I don't really call myself a Christian because I don't want people to get confused about what that means. But I live every day in surrender to the Holy Spirit. So my life is dedicated to God's will, and I do believe in Jesus Christ. I've experienced miracles just from his name. So I do believe in Christ now, but I don't identify as a particular religion per se. I have just an independent relationship.
Okay. Thanks very much for that question. Danielle Chamberlain in the house, a member and also a good friend. Her and Neville are good friends of ours. Question: did you ever meet Yvonne? And she also mentioned in a comment, Erin, you're so beautiful. I can see your grandmother in you.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. I'm assuming you mean my grandmother Yvonne with that question.
Yes.
Yes.
I did not. She died well before I was born. But my cousin is named Yvonne, and I know her quite well. Peter's
Same
daughter.
name.
Yeah, Peter's daughter Yvonne. And actually, my daughter's middle name is Yvonne. So Yvonne has stayed around in some ways, but no, I did not get to meet her in person.
Okay.
And
Thanks,
Paul
Danielle, for that
never met
question.
her either.
No, I did. I met her, briefly at CC years ago. Duchess Diana, the winner of the Salve. Question: it is so nice to meet you, Erin, and hear your point of view. May I ask, what was an example of your mom not knowing what to do while raising you because her mom had not been there? Hugs and echo.
But it sounds maybe
Come on,
silly.
rat her out. Rat her out.
No, it's very simple, but like I remember being in junior high, and it was when I'd started to discover makeup. It was important to me to have nice makeup because of all the other girls. And I already didn't fit in because I wasn't Mormon, right? So we were older now, and I felt like maybe I could be accepted. So for me, it was very important to be part of what was trendy and to know how to do my makeup the way the other girls did their makeup. And I asked my mom to show me, and she said, I don't know. I don't really wear much. And if I do, it's very simple and nobody taught me. I don't really know how to teach you that. And so she kind of just left me to it. And I would sit in the mirror and I would just practice on myself. And sometimes it was really bad, but I just taught myself. And I think YouTube had maybe just come out. So I might have looked up one or two things, but it was well before the like beauty vlogging era. So there really wasn't that much there. And I guess maybe looking in Cosmo magazine, like I used magazines and friends and whatnot to learn, but I had to teach myself how to do makeup because my mom didn't know.
Well, I remember you were into the Spice Girls at a young age.
I really was. I loved singing and dancing. And so I was all about that. And eventually I learned how to do all of that quite well, as if I was going to do it professionally, and decided not to. But
yeah,
that's a whole other story.
Janis, we didn't show the photos, but Erin has a great voice, and she sang in the choir and sang in competition, and she was fantastic. Sang in the White House, right?
Yeah, a few times I got to sing in the White House and Disneyland and the Veterans Day Parade in New York, all over the Strip. I got to do lots of cool things. I was in lots of different studios recording. And like I said, I did get offered a contract with the producer, but it was so clear to me. I was only 14. It was a very pivotal age for me, clearly 14. But I had a really clear vision after getting that offer of me being on stage and coming off and just being totally handled. And I went, no, I'm not going to give up all agency of myself to be a famous singer. It wasn't important enough to me. And I'd already been working at being a singer since I was like 6. I'd been in vocal groups and traveling. And I think the first, I might be wrong on the dates, but I think I was like 11 or 12 when we first went to the White House, maybe 13. But I was really
Yeah.
young, so I'd already accomplished quite a lot, and I just didn't feel like I needed to compromise myself in order to be validated, I guess.
Okay. Thanks very much for that questions. We've got Duchess Diana again. Question: Did Erin say she did a last life regression? I didn't hear because I was typing.
I naturally have been recalling past lives since I was young. And I actually had a moment with my dad also when I was maybe 12, where I sat down on the couch, he's working, and I used to go interrupt him all the time. There was a couch there. So to me, it was like, you're welcome to sit. So I would sit and I would talk to him. And I said, can you tell me how to recall past lives? Because I obviously recalled one when I was little, and I haven't really had anything since, but I know they're real. And I'm curious to know more. And I also had like an obsession with a certain country in the world. Specifically, it was Italy. I was obsessed with Italy since I was young, and I just felt like I knew the place. And so I really wanted to explore these other lives. And I asked him, and he said, okay, well, lean back. And he said, close your eyes. And I did all of it. And he goes, where were you in, I think he said like 1462 or something. And I got an image that came to me instantly, and I described it to him. And he was like, wow, okay. I said, that's it. And I was like, how do I know I didn't just make that up? And he said, well, normally people don't recall anything. It's normally, he said, you probably just have a gift of recalling it very easily. And some people, they do auditing their whole life and they never get a past life recall. And so I kind of didn't totally believe it at first. I believed in past lives, but I wasn't sure it wasn't my imagination because it was just so casual. And so I just took it privately into my experience and started to kind of expand it from there. And I had a very vivid dream when I was maybe 17, where I was on a ship in a storm and a wave was coming up. And I just went, oh, I'm going to die. I just knew it. And my whole consciousness dropped into my heart space and everything went black, but it was like I was in this cocoon. And I felt pressure coming around me. And it was this observation of like, okay, the water has reached the body, but I was detached from the body, yet somehow in it. And it was very interesting because I had the conscious realization that my consciousness is me, and that is my safety. It was like confirmation that I am a soul, not a body. And from there, my consciousness was carried to the corner of a hospital room where there was a woman giving birth and the father in the room. And I got a flash of what the entire lifetime would be for that child. And I was kind of like, not really feeling it. And so I then felt into the parents of, are they going to be okay if this is a stillborn baby? And I looked at the experience and they were going to get closer. It was going to be fine. So I withdrew my will from that lifetime, and the dream ended with me washing up on shore back in that body that had been in the shipwreck. And I woke up and I went, wow, we have a lot of power as spirit, so much more than we realize when we're walking around in our bodies, living our lives. But it was so vivid and it was so clear that I accepted it as a recall, not just a dream. Like it was very clearly a message. And then after that, I started a meditation practice years later. And when I was meditating, I would get lots of recalls. And then it opened up even further where I traveled to Italy and I was having recalls while I was in places. And then it continued to expand when I would have conversations with people as I was working with them, like in astrology readings or one-on-one coachings that I would do. I was suddenly getting their past lives. So I just became, because of my lifelong openness to it, I have been very, it's been easy for me to receive that kind of information, I guess. So okay. I think one time I did do a past life regression, but it didn't feel as profound as when I just do it myself and let it like come up myself. There was some things that I'd realized, but yeah, that was just somebody who'd just gotten their certification and wanted to try it out with me. And so I let them, but I was recalling well before that person invited me into that session.
Okay. Thanks for that question, Duchess Diana. DNV 1982 question. Janice, is your granddaughter Erin's daughter or your son's?
Erin's daughter. Yes. Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Next question, Rusty. Question: who's Kenny, Janis?
Oh, Kenny is Kenny Lipton. Kenny Lipton was in the Sea Org with us, and he left the Sea Org around the same time as us and joined us in Las Vegas. People will know him. His sister was Peggy Lipton, who was married to Quincy Jones, and Peggy Lipton from the Mod Squad back in the 60s and 70s.
Yep. Great guy. He died way too young.
Yeah.
Okay, next question here, Dashley Saboteur. I did buy some of the salve. It really helps my hands. That's great.
Yay! That's so good to hear.
And just to remind everybody, you get a 10% discount if you decide you want to buy in the next, what is it, 7 days till the 6th of
the next
September. Week. Yeah. And then I had to put this comment up from Claire Medley. The Mercedes are coming, LOL. Thanks for making me choke on my water, Janis.
You're welcome, Claire. Anytime. I can give you some good stories.
Okay, that's all the questions. Are there any other ones in there, Janis? I think that's it, right? We've got
no. I think that's it. Yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate to everybody, like I said, if you want to order her artwork or whatever, just you go ahead and commission a piece. Go to connect at healedbyoracle.com. And then the other thing I was going to show is the Oracle. Here it is. Sorry, the Oracle Healing Salve. And that's at www.healingbyoracle.com. You get a 10% discount coupon. The code is ONION10. ONION10 is valid between today and September 6th. Okay.
Yes.
So anyway, so I just wanted to mention that. There you go. Healedbyoracle.com. Okay. And
thank you, Mark.
I have to, you're welcome. I have to say also, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We appreciate all the subscribers. We need more. I think we're almost at 7,500. We're at 7,450. We just need 50 more and we'll hit 7,500. And you can go, this is where you subscribed at Mark and Janis Gillham Grady. That's the address of our YouTube channel. If you want to become a member, just click on that join button on our channel homepage. And also, finally, if you have any other questions, you can just ask in the comment section. And Janis and I check them regularly, and we will definitely answer them. And hopefully we'll have Erin back here again. I think it was really great. How did it go, Erin? How did you feel?
I had so much fun with you guys. And there's definitely more to say on the topic, but this was wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Good.
Well, we were happy to have you.
If you liked Erin, make sure you rock slam that like button.
That's right. That's right. And Janis, did you enjoy having your daughter on here?
I did enjoy having her, and she didn't embarrass me. She just made me proud.
Absolutely.
Well, I just told the truth. That's all.
That's all you can do. And you know what? We're all better off for it if when you tell the truth and you live your life. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. I don't have anything else. Until next time, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.